Right guys, I'm going to take you through Casper, a case study of a guy I've just finished working with recently. When Casper came to us, he was really at a low point. Low self-worth, low self-esteem. So typical of guys these days that come to work with us. Also uncertain of what he wanted, had no clear idea, which generally was making him feel uneasy and unhappy in life. Then he had his nice guy stuff, so had poor communication skills, unable to set boundaries. These were causing big issues in his relationship. And on top of this, he was very lonely. He was working himself into the ground, studying and in his job. The transformation was huge. Take it 8 weeks later, he had the ability to like and love himself. This was the first thing he said when I was asking, what have you got out of this course? He jumped to say that, which I thought was really beautiful. He knows what he wants in life. He had clear direction. He knew where his ship was going. He'd become a better communicator and he set boundaries. He knows what they actually are now. This is something that's really made a big difference in his relationship with his long-term partner, his wife. Also, he's got this super strong mindset that he can take on for everything that comes his way now, which is a big part of what we do together. So when he comes to us, his self-worth was at a rock bottom. He didn't know what boundaries even actually were. He was only working and studying, as I said before. He had got himself into a real rut of this loneliness, and he had lost the ability to make friends and connections with people because he just isolated himself so much. He was stumbling through life and his marriage, and when he comes to us, like I say, he's at a rock bottom there, and he was looking out for help. He was unclear on what he wanted and how to put his needs first, and he didn't even know what his needs were, so he was unclear on quite a lot of things. His life was completely out of balance. As I said, all work, no play. That's no good. We're supposed to have fun. He'd reached a tipping point in his relationship, and he knew it had to be sorted. That's when he found us, and that's when he started working with me. So as I said, something had to change. He didn't know what the problem was. He was stuck on this plateau, physically and mentally, isolated, not knowing what even the issue was. And like many guys, he couldn't clearly communicate his wants and his needs. Didn't really even know what they were. That was the problem. He hadn't actually ever turned to reflect inwards. And that's where Casper was. His relationship had hit a point that he had to be rescued. But he didn't have the skills or the knowledge how to go about it, to do anything about it. He knew something had to change. He knew it was very urgent, and he had to find the time to do the work before he hasn't. And so that's why he's found himself at this point. So this is Casper. He's going on his journey. He'd hit the point where he made the decision that the only option was to grow and embrace it, to get on with it. Most guys, they'll continue to resist change and accepting that there's actually room for personal growth because it's not naturally in us to explore that. And he decided that the pain of being unheard and unseen, it was a catalyst that was for the transformation, and he was ready to go about it, start his own journey, be the hero of his story. He was fed up with lacking confidence, low self-worth and being lonely. He knew it was time to find support. All of these things had him feeling, like I say, at his rock bottom, and he was ready to get started on things now. So, when he first started working with us, it was a case of identifying the patterns and where they were coming from. He'd never asked himself what his priorities or his core values were, and so he had no idea where to steer his life. This is the fundamental thing we start with, that so many guys really don't ask these fundamental starting questions. He'd cut himself off from doing anything for himself. So how is he possibly going to know these things? He stopped making friends and spending any time having fun. He was very, as I say, isolated and lonely. He knew his marriage was in a constant spin due to his inability to honestly communicate how he was feeling and what he thought. Communication was a huge thing for Casper. He really didn't know how to vocalise what he was feeling inside. He'd never put his needs first because he didn't know what they were, and he didn't know what a boundary was. He was always second best in relationships, romantic and professional. But his mindset was a huge change. It was a huge thing for Casper, as well as the communication. He was stuck inside his head, looping round, overthinking and not sharing what was going on inside. He didn't know how to vocalise what was going on inside, and it was a muddle for him always. And it had gone on for such a long time, and it was having a real negative impact on him. So it was a case of re-authoring the narrative that's going on inside his head, start to say a new self-truth for him. By talking with other men, he started to feel accepted, and he burst the bubble in his throat and started to share what was inside and realised that he wasn't alone. He vocalised his deepest fears. He's really got true to what was going on inside and what he was resisting. By opening up this, he identified the patterns and also had a lot of limiting beliefs that were keeping him stuck in this rut. We changed the relationship to his past. Well, he did. He learned how to speak to his inner child. So we went really deep with Casper, and through this healthy self-talk, he learned to make himself his number one priority for the first time. This was such a big turning point. So these are the two sides that we work on here. You've got to have direction and you've got to have the mindset as well. One is no good without the other because you're out of balance. One, you're going to be going steaming off in a direction with all gun-ho, and the other one will have you being a little bit too zen. He had no ship with no direction to head in, but he got really crystal clear through doing this work what he wanted his future to look like, so he created a vision while understanding the mind, introducing mindfulness practices and healthy rituals to build present moment awareness. One does not work without the other for sure, and he understood that consistency was key with the mindfulness work to keep him going in the new direction that he wanted to take his life in. We explored how he became a nice guy. This is standard work that we do with so many guys. We identified from a young age that his needs were not met in a timely, judiciously manner from his main caregivers. We understood what a differentiated man looks like compared to an undifferentiated man, also known as an integrated man, and how to go on the path to change that. He learned how to reparent himself, get his needs met by filling his own bucket. Surround himself with a support system of people that would be cooperative reciprocal relationships, which continuously will evolve over time. This was really important for Casper, having a network of guys around him, men that he could feel comfortable with and go to, and they support each other. And he can now say, as I said before, he can now say he likes and loves himself, which is huge. And yeah, pretty sad that how far away he was from that. So this all comes, you build this through goals, habits and routines. He identified the existing habits that were holding him back from going where he wants to go. So he chose goals across health, wealth, self and relationships, which aligned with his values and his vision. So he had a clear roadmap that would keep him going in the right direction. He knew that if he did the work, then good things would come by showing up every day. And he was so consistent and good for this, because then it boosted his confidence, self-worth through consistency. And yeah, he had no problem showing up for himself. And yeah, some of the effort he put in was extraordinary. And he finished the course with a mindset to kick on with the next exciting phase of his life, with confidence and knowing that everything would be okay. And this is a real big thing as well that he said. He just knew from now on everything would be okay, and he's built a skill set for life with great wisdom and knowledge. So to recap, he arrived at the men's group feeling his all-time low of self-worth and self-esteem. He knew something had to be done because his marriage had a dead end for communication and a real lack of happiness. Just 8 weeks later, after the program, he could clearly communicate his needs and his boundaries. This is real big nice guy stuff that he'd overcome. His people-pleasing behaviour was, far gone afterwards. He was loving himself and loving his life, and he was committed to achieving these goals that he'd set for himself. He's confident and makes healthy new male friends while he knows where he's going in his life, and is supported by his consistency to his healthy, strong mindset and being kinder to himself. His self-talk, some of it was really quite bad, and that's something really that he got his head around and tackled that I know paid dividends for him. So the three things that he turned up that were holding him back: he'd isolated himself from spending any time on well-being. In nice guy behaviour, had no boundaries and poor communication. Low self-worth and self-esteem and confidence, and he had no direction for what he wanted, and had stopped being kind to himself. He wasn't prioritising his needs himself, didn't know what they were. Once he knew all this, it boosted him and sent him tenfold forwards. Hope that's helpful for you guys. This is the work we do.